Welcome to a live edition of the Deep Look podcast. Hello, everybody. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, editor in chief, joined by senior editor Keith Raynor, and it is a time honored tradition. It is the Nationals preview show. We're super excited. We're still on the East Coast. Normally, we do the show from San Diego, but the timing this year just wasn't going to work out. Keith doesn't get in until really late on Wednesday, so we're doing it today. It's 2 o'clock Eastern. Please share. We're on YouTube, and super excited to have you here. Please, if you have questions, hit us up in the chat, and we're going to break it all down. We're going to make our picks. We're going to make our hashtag the game picks. We're going to break down every pool and take a look at some of the key matchups along the way. And really just super excited to have everybody here and getting ready for this tournament where, Keith, I think one of the most interesting things about this year is the lack of data and the lack of insight that we have compared to a typical year into teams. What is their offensive structure? Who are their key players? We know a little about some teams, we know a lot, but there are a number of teams that played very little or even not at all during the regular season and are more or less a black box. And I think that makes this year's national championships incredibly interesting. We might see some big surprises, and I'm just can't wait for it all to unfold in beautiful sunny San Diego.
And what's more, for many of those teams, there have been significant changes to their roster makeup. It's not just like, oh, we can just lean on 2019. We already know who we are. You look across the spectrum, and aside from, I'm trying to think of teams that haven't had big roster changes. Maybe like Sockeye and Machine, but there are some key new players on nearly every other team that you think of, that I can think of, that is competing for a title. Whether it's your mixtapes or your space heaters or your Dragon Thrust has had some big changes in the mixed division. Fury's got some really big names that have been changed on their team. Brute Squad, Molly Brown. You look up and down the line, and a lot of these teams, whether or not they've gone to compete, Ring of Fire, I'm sure we'll talk more about how little that they've played this year. They've obviously had some big changes to their roster. So I'm curious, not only, how much do we know about these teams, but how much do these teams know about themselves, Charlie? How much do they really feel like they have built out an identity? It's hard to do that in one tournament or two tournaments. It's hard to establish a team identity, certainly to the level that we usually see from teams that are competing for a championship.
And how much have teams even been able to practice in some cases? We're going to talk about Ring of Fire in a little bit, and they didn't play in the regular season. They went to regionals. And, do they feel confident in their O and D lines? Are they going to be making changes up into the tournament? Are they going to be making changes during the tournament? Everything seems on the table if you haven't had that long season to really lock in your rotations. So it adds to the uncertainty that always exists at this time of year, of course. But a lot of times we have a pretty good sense of, okay, well, these teams are going to easily get to quarters, and maybe we still do to some extent, but more than ever, I'm expecting surprises. And again, we are live on YouTube. Hit us up in the chat if you have comments or questions. And why don't we kick it off, Keith? What division do you want to start in?
Ooh, where do we want to start? Where do we want to start? Let's lean right into the chaos, Charlie, with the mixed division. How about that?
I love it.
Also, if you're watching live on YouTube, or if you're even just passing by, little thumbs up. Little thumbs up, huh? I think it's probably down there somewhere. I don't really know where we are positioned on the screen, but a little thumbs up goes a long way. It's free.
Like and subscribe. We got to get that YouTube lingo down.
We really do.
All right, we're gonna go pool by pool here, and we're gonna, for reasons of time and having to go through 12 pools, we're gonna keep it as snappy as we can as we try to break things down. Here is your pool A in the mixed division. You've got Shame in the number 1 seed out of Fort Collins. Kind of a surprise number 1 seed, but a couple of the teams that were going to be ahead of them lost at regionals. Slow out of Boston is in the 8 spot, 2 seed in the pool. Madison Noise in the 3 spot, and Boise Locksaw in the 13. I should say Boise. I'm learning.
Oh, you really got the Locksaw perfectly though.
Yeah, I'm learning all the time. Shout out to all of our Idaho friends. So that is your Pool A. And certainly Keith Shane will be the favorite, but they don't necessarily feel like a lock.
I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with that. I think they feel like a team that has had. I mean, they had a great regular season. I think that they would have been, the 3 seed had everybody else won their region as they were favored to do. Like they had the 1 seeds and other regions won their region. I think they would have been, very highly seeded, and they've had a very strong regular season. And of course, they're now going to reap the benefits of the 1 seed, having every team in their pool be pretty good distance seated behind them. I think it gets very interesting though when you talk about how those 3 seeds match up with each other. And we've certainly Shame is a team that we've seen be inconsistent in the past. And their kind of team attitude and mantra doesn't necessarily vibe with being a title favorite. How does that mesh happen for them? It might have been easier to play from the underdog status when you're the team that likes to consume alcoholic beverages on the sideline.
I feel like that part of their team is starting to fade from their identity a little bit, if I have to be perfectly honest with you.
But does that create tension?
It may. It may. But I mean, I think this is a team that knows they can win a title, that came very close in 2019 and watched it slip through their fingers. And, it takes it pretty seriously these days. Not to say they still don't, have a good time and unwind, but I don't think this is a team that's going to be getting drunk on Friday night before semis. Sorry.
No, we're not going to have a brownie incident.
It's just like the progression of mixtape. That was like a team that was all about just having a good time. And, they progressively became a blue blood program in the mixed division. That's not to say that they still don't have that personality, but they're also a team that's like trying to win a championship and like goes hard towards that and doesn't just screw around. I feel the same way about Shane. And I'm not on the inside of the team, but this does feel like a team that is thinking past pool play. I'll tell you that much. It's not just like they're going to be happy to be there. If they lose a game in pool play, that's going to be really disappointing to them.
Indeed. I do think it's possible, though. I mean, I think Slow and even Noise are pretty competitive squads. I don't think they're going to be walkovers necessarily for Shame, but sometimes those teams really have to focus on beating each other to make sure they get out of the pool. So that may take away some of the focus, but I think it's a little dangerous.
I'm going to give you an early hot take. Northeast mixed, down year.
Ooh.
I think that they could collectively do poorly. Like nobody in quarters. Wouldn't shock me, Keith.
Wow.
Wouldn't shock me. I think like Noise, honestly, I find to be like a more interesting potential upset alert for Shame than Slow.
They are intriguing. I mean, they put up good games against Dragon Thrust.
So let's move on to Pool B. Take it away, Keith.
All right, so at the top of the pool, we have Seattle BFG, the 2 seed after winning Northwest Regionals. Speaking of regional champs, they have another one, Arizona Lawless, the new team out of Arizona who won the Southwest. And then you have Nashville Shine, the champs continue. This is the Southeast champion. And then you have Denver Love Tractor as the 14 overall seed and the 4th seed in the pool. Charlie, is there anybody here who can challenge BFG?
Gonna go with no. Not after BFG beat Mixtape at regionals. I think
and sectionals twice. They beat them twice.
Sectionals. Yeah, I mean, and they've been in top 3, top 5 team the whole season basically. Lawless is interesting though. I will admit that. I think that they kind of have a little bit of a question mark. They played a pretty good game against BFG earlier this season. I don't think it's out of the question, but it just feels to me like BFG is a team that knows how to show up in this national setting. They've been there before, and they're going to take care of business in pool play. Lawless feels like a team that might have an implosion, to be perfectly honest. It concerns me when I see a team really struggle at sectionals. I mean, obviously they had a great regionals, but maybe they caught fire at the right time. I'm a little suspicious of the Southwest mixed teams too, to be honest. Like we spent all this time talking about, mischief, they're going to show up, and then they weren't even any good at all. So then I'm like, okay, well, what does this mean to me about this entire region?
What
Uh,
if the whole region's really good and Mischief was good and couldn't make it out?
plausible, plausible, plausible. I mean, Lawless played tight games at Pro Champs with good teams,
And
but
I like that they got in a really strong regular season like slate. I like that they played against good teams already because that's not
I
the
do too.
case across a lot of the division.
But this is a bizarre pool. I mean, I think this is the weirdest pool of all of them. This collection of teams is very strange. Like, I don't really know what to expect from Love Tractor. I don't really know what to expect from Shine. And I don't really know what to expect from Lawless. I think that BFG is a team that we know will be consistent, that will be good, that has beaten Mixtape multiple times. I think they win this pool 3-0. But after that, man, I really don't know.
Oh, I'm with you on that front. I mean, I think that BFG will have the best point diff at the end of pool play of any team in the mixed division. Uh, I think that they're a pretty big step ahead of the competition. I can't figure out Love Tractor. Their resume stinks. I mean, it outright stinks. But the talent on this team, when I look at the roster, it looks good. I like can't figure out why they're not good because they're good players on this team, and not just I know it's easy to like talk about Jack McShane or whatever. Yeah, they lost Dina Slattery, but like there are a bunch of good players on this team. Like probably more than a line. Like 10 players who I think are good quality players. I don't know why this team doesn't perform better. I'm gonna hope that maybe that's some personnel stuff because I am eyeing them for a game pick. Uh,
Ooh,
I
arcane
really
point.
am feeling like I may take them, but we'll talk more about it later. But I just can't figure out why this team doesn't win more.
All right. I mean, you pick somebody else to win the pool if you want, but if you let's say you have BFG winning the pool, who comes out on top of that other trio? Lawless, Shine, or Love Tractor?
Um, it's tough. I mean, I am not a believer in Shine, so it comes down to Lawless or Love Tractor, and I'm going to take the regular season reps, I guess, for Lawless. Yeah, I guess I'll go that way. But I think it could be close. I could really see Love Tractor finish second in the pool, and it's crazy. That's crazy to say when you look at their resume.
Yeah, I think I'm taking Lawless, but with hesitation. Let's go to Pool C. Seattle Mixtape is your number one seed. They're the three overall. Space Heater out of Washington, D.C. is the number two seed, six overall. Sprocket from largely the Boston area in the three spot. And Polar Bears out of San Francisco in the four spot, the 15 seed overall. Really intriguing pool. A couple of established mixed division names at this point in Mixtape and Space Heater, as well as a really interesting, so far streaky team in Sprocket, and then a Polar Bears team that I don't think people before the season had penciled to make nationals, but here they are, and I think that's exactly the kind of team that you don't really want to have be the bottom seed in your pool, a team with a lot of nationals experience.
Agreed. I have said that I think that this is the toughest pool, and I don't think it's just the top. I mean, I went on as far to say there's a possibility that at every line on the entire bracket, that the top line, the second line, the third line, the fourth line, they could have the best team in every line in this pool. Do I think that we're going to see a three semifinalists necessarily kind of thing? No, that's probably a bit ambitious, but it's very possible to me that they have the best team at every line, and that is a tough draw for Sprocket and Polar Bears to me because I don't know that they're better than Space Heater, and I don't think they're better than Space Heater and Mixtape, two teams I think who could win a title. Uh, so to be stuck in that pool with them, if either of those teams were in Pool B, I might be picking them to finish second in the pool, but instead one of them is going to be out on day one.
Yeah, this is it's a very interesting pool. I just think there's too much firepower on those top two seeds for either of them to lose to the teams below them. I just think Sprocket's super interesting because they're really young. They have a lot of athletic talent. They're the kind of team that's going to lose two games and then like get a crazy upset with their third game in the pool. And maybe they go 1-2 and still miss like pre-quarters, right? That they'll like upset Mixtape and then lose to Polar Bears and Space Heater, and then but them and Polar Bears will both be 1-2, and they'll be out on head to head. Like that feels like I could write that script. So we'll see. I'm excited to see this Sprocket team. I mean, they beat Slow at regionals on day one, and then lost on day two. I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing that I think shows you what this team is. If they're hitting, if they're clicking, they're going to be very tough to stop, but they can also spiral in the wrong direction and lose badly. So fun to see. I think all eyes will be on the top of this pool in that final round of the day between Mixtape and Space Heater, and rightfully so. I'm not sure who I really give an edge to in that match. It feels like a pick 'em, Keith.
It sure does. I really don't know. I mean, I've been thinking about it pretty much all year since I labeled them the two title favorites, and I don't really know who to favor. I mean, I've been on the mixtape side for a long way, but like it's hard not to look at this Space Heater roster and have your jaw drop. It's just so high powered. So I really don't know who to make as the favorite, and I'm not even sure exactly what to do with the winner of that Sprocket Polar Bears matchup once they get in the bracket. So it really could go either way. This is a very exciting pool, though. Every game could be fireworks. Like, it wouldn't shock me to see Polar Bears put a scare into one of the top two seeds, even if I ultimately don't think they're probably going to win that game.
Keep in mind, if you are a subscriber, you can check out our subscriber-only bonus segment where we look at some of the games that we think are really going to define the tournament in pool play, as well as some of the players to key in on, players to watch, key individuals that could drive success for their team. And so you can become a subscriber for less than $4 a month at ultiworld.com/subscribe. We are in the middle of our subscription drive, so we would certainly appreciate you joining in, trying to get 400 new subscribers by the end of the month. Okay, on to Pool D. James Highsmith in the chat said he tried to fast forward to hear about Pool D in the mixed division.
Didn't work.
Unfortunately, it's tough to fast forward the live podcast, but we are there now. So let's take a look at it. Keith, who we got in Pool D?
Yeah, in Pool D, I'm going to give you the Pool D, folks, but I know there's 56 people watching this, and there's 9 thumbs up. I know we could do better. We can get to the 15 to 20 range. If you're watching right now and you haven't given us a thumbs up, we greatly appreciate it. Pool D at the top is DNT, Dragon Thrust, out of Minneapolis. Philadelphia Amp is the number 5 overall seed and the second in this pool. Ann Arbor Hybrid is third in the pool, and New York Exist is the 16th seed in the division and the last seed in this pool as well. A lot of eyes on this pool. I mean, we talked a lot about the excitement in Pool C. Pool D could rival it, and a lot of that depends on what we get out of Hybrid.
Yeah, I mean, this is a classic. We're not sure what we're going to see team. They've played. Well, let's see. They beat Shine, so they have a win over somebody in the Nationals field. They beat Shine 14-10 back in July. They only have one loss on the year. Came to Cleveland Crocs, who they subsequently beat every other time they played them. They dominated at Great Lakes Regionals. We talked all about how great this region was, how deep it was, how many great teams we saw from this region. And then they didn't really play a close game the whole time. 13-9 against U54 was their closest game. How tough is this team going to be? I get the sense that this is going to be a defensively minded team that's going to give teams opposing O-lines a lot of trouble. I am wondering whether they have the offensive firepower to get past teams above them in Amp and Dragon Thrust. That's going to be the big question. Maybe this is clouded because I just know so many Michigan teams over the years have been that real grindy style. Not that there's not plenty of talent on this team. We had a great interview with Highsmith in our subscriber bonus segment last week. You could go check that out. But, let's just be honest. I think everyone's wondering what this team's going to be. They've had close games against teams that aren't that good. So where do you think that puts them? I think they're probably a step behind Dragon Thrust and Amp, but I'm excited to find out what they've got, Keith.
I'm in the same boat. I mean, the resume to me speaks to a team that is going to be competitive. It's hard to want to pick them over the likes of Dragon Thrust and Amp, given the big names, given the experience we've seen for those teams. But I think hybrid from our conversation with James Highsmith is going to relish being in that underdog role. I don't know if that's going to be enough to get them past the likes of Amp and Dragon Thrust, but I think it could serve them very well in the bracket. They might be at the top of the heap of the teams that I don't necessarily think can contend for a title / make semifinals. Like, they might be the best of the rest in this situation in my eyes. So I think that they could do well, but it's tough being in Pool D and having to compete with teams like Dragon Thrust and Amp in order to even finish second in the pool.
I really like the crossovers for this pool, but over to Pool A. I think let's say hybrid goes 1 and 2, right? Everything goes to seed, and they cross over with slow. Okay. I like their chances there. I mean, obviously that's the 8-9 seed matchup, so not a big surprise, but I do think hybrid's got a great chance to make quarters. I mean, of course, the bigger question here is like, how good are these teams above them? We've seen some real turnover for Amp. We've seen some real turnover for Dragon Thrust. No more strings, no more bacon. Who's going to stir the drink for Dragon? I mean, they had a pretty good season when you look at it. Not dominant, but good. And, still lots of very experienced talent on the roster. Sarah Mexstroth, top amongst. Brian Vanutka, very good. And so I'm Caleb Denacor. I think that they're very solid. They did lose twice at the Amp Invite. They lost by 2 to Space Heater, and then had a very strange 5-point loss to Toro on Sunday. But they beat Amp. They crushed Slow, and they destroyed Wildcard. So other than that, they've mostly just had wins against Noise that you would look at as notable results. 13-8 twice against Noise, both at sectionals and regionals. So good team, but that Dragon Amp game I think is going to tell us a lot. That was a 14-13 game back in August. Who wins that matchup? That's going to, I think, be a real definer for what the bracket's going to shape up to look like.
Absolutely. And, they had some nice pickups that I think went under the radar. The likes of Michelle McGee, Danielle Byers. We could see Nariah Bell Sims also on that list. Kat Ritzman is somebody we've all been very impressed by over the years, and I think this is an opportunity for her to take a real big step forward into a bigger role. But you're right. Amp is also very strong and has experienced some turnover of their own. They obviously lost Anna Thompson. That's going to make a lot of waves in your team. That's really going to shift the matchups. But it's really tough to pick between these teams. Like in the same way that we said Space Heater and Mixtape might be a coin flip, I don't think you can really say much else about Dragon Thrust and Amp besides that they're probably very evenly matched.
Do you think it's more likely that at this Nationals we see the biggest star performers being established club names who we've grown to expect big performances from, or younger, newer players that have had 2 years to develop since we've seen anybody play, club nationals, and are going to surprise us? What do you think is more likely?
I mean, you left out that those older established players are now 2 years older and maybe a little bit more out of shape.
Yes.
I mean, look, I'm going to lean on the experience here. If it might be different in the college season where I think players maybe have gotten in more reps. Maybe it'll be an effective AUDL for folks who competed in the AUDL. Like they were still getting in reps, still staying in shape. And it's a lot harder to replicate that outside of that kind of contained environment. I'm sure some people were playing pickup. I'm sure there are folks who had the motivation to get in the gym, they got stronger, their bodies developed a little bit more. Like we will see a couple of those players who it's like, wow, when I last saw them, they were, a freshman in college or whatever, and now they look really good. But I think you're going to see that effect more at the college championships. And I think here you're going to see the experienced players, the players who've been there, who know the grind, like they're going to be able to kind of get onto their feet a little faster. So I would lean towards, those players making a bigger impact than the younger players that, we haven't seen grow and are going to feel like, oh, I missed a season of the show. And now this person went from a teenager to an adult.
All right, Keith, do you want to do picks for the mixed division now, or do you want to save our pick segment for the end?
Let's knock them out now. What do you think?
I like it.
Shout out to, I want to just shout out Exist because I am somehow, despite Charlie being from New York, I feel like he's the skeptic and I'm the believer. I think Exist is actually kind of good, but not good enough to win this pool or anything. But I think they're better than Charlie thinks they are.
I'm hard fading Northeast mixed this year.
Yeah, I've picked up on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, semis picks. Who you got?
All right. So you have to solve the coin flips, right, to kind of start you off.
Sure.
So I'm going to take the lower seed, the Mid-Atlantic teams in both of Pool C and Pool D matchups. So I'm gonna have BFG, Space Heater, and Amp all winning their pools. I'm gonna say that Shame drops a pool play game. I don't know
Wow.
why I feel this, but I think that they lose to Slow. I like Slow's roster. I don't get like Love Tractor. I'm not quite sure why they haven't been better. Maybe they're a team that has a little too many old bodies that added a couple of years. But I mean, there are really good players who we've seen do really well at nationals, and not like 10 years ago on this team, but like a couple of years ago. Uh, I'm going to take Slow to win Pool A. I don't know if that's necessarily going to get them uh, into semifinals though. So now I have to kind of look at how my bracket shakes out, because now I've got Shame as a landmine in the bracket, and they're over on Pool. They'll match up with the winner of Pool B, which is BFG. I don't know, man. Shame in the bracket is a scary team. They're a scary team. I'm still gonna take my other pool winners. I'm gonna take Amp and Space Heater to make it to semifinals. I think. I also guess I have to look at where Mixtape and Dragon Thrust are in the bracket. This is a hard year. The mixed division is very difficult this year. So that gives me Amp. Oh man, I get Amp Mixtape. Should Mixtape win there? Man, I don't know. Actually, maybe I'm gonna put Mixtape. Maybe I gotta take it out. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm going Mixtape. I'm going Space Heater. And then I have Dragon against, yeah, I got Space Heater over Dragon. Amp, Space Heater. I'm gonna take Shame over BFG.
Okay.
And then we get the team that may feel like they didn't deserve to be there out of the quadrant with Slow with the pool winner, which will be Sprocket, based on my Sprocket, Slow, and Lawless. I guess one of those three teams makes semis.
Okay.
That seems insane, but whatever. We've called crazier things on the show before. Do I really believe in Sprocket to make semis? I'm doing it. I'm taking Sprocket to semis. I don't know how this happened. Three semis teams from Pool C. We're doing it.
So you give it to us.
Colby's
again.
saying I'm wrong,
Shame,
but I've
Mixtape, Space Heater, Sprocket.
is that so? I have my Pool A
I
winner
think that's
losing
doable.
to. I'm making sure that I did this right. Versus BC. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that is right. As long as I got the crossovers correct.
All right. All right. Oh, what am I going to do here?
That was hard.
I think Amp's going to upset Dragon Thrust in Pool D to win Pool D. Call that an upset if you want. I think Space Heater is going to beat Mixtape in Pool C. I have BFG winning Pool B, and I have Shame winning Pool A. So your pool winners are Shame, BFG, Space Heater, and Amp. Now, the question is, where does Mixtape end up? So Mixtape's the 2C. I assume they win their game. They play the 1C. So they're going to play Amp in quarters.
This is exactly what happened to me.
And I'm going to take Mixtape to beat Amp. So I have Mixtape getting in. I have Space Heater getting in. And then I think I'm taking Chalk on the other side. So I think I'm taking Shame and BFG, Space Heater and Mixtape.
It's crazy how much work I did to get to where I got, and we still ended up with 3 out of the 4 same teams.
Well, I mean, this is tried and true. I mean, you got to pick the talent. I mean, I think Shame gets a big advantage from being the 1 seed.
I do agree with that. I can't say that I have like some sort of inside knowledge here that's driving this. This was more of a gut call. Something feels like it's going to go weird in Pool A.
You've made some big calls over the years. You called Sixers to semis, and people didn't really think that was right, and they were wrong, and you were right. They made all the way to the finals.
I can't say that I've got the magic again here, but I don't know. Just something feels off.
All right, so those are our semis picks. For the finals, I'm gonna go with. I think Mixtape's finally gonna get revenge. Oh wait a minute, hang on. I gotta get these right. Space Heater, I think, is gonna play BFG, and Shame is gonna play Mixtape. I think Mixtape beats Shame again. They got him once already at the Pro Championships, and I think it's a good matchup for them. So I'm taking Mixtape to the final, and I'm taking Space Heater over BFG. So we're going to get a rematch of Mixtape Space Heater in the final.
Let's see if I'm going to end up in the same place. So yeah, I've got Mixtape against Sprocket, I believe. So I'm feel pretty good about taking Mixtape there to make it to the final. And then on the other side, that gives me Shame and Space Heater. And yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm taking Space Heater. I'm going back to where I've been all year, which is Mixtape Space Heater final.
Take your champ. Who you got?
Um, man, now do I really go just back to the priors? Do I go right back to the priors? Oh man, give me Mixtape. Give me Mixtape.
I'm taking Space Heater.
We have a lot of similarities, but when it comes down to it, we went the other way. I mean, look, we said it was a coin flip game. I feel no significant confidence about this between these two teams, but man, you don't get a lot of rematches in finals of pool play games.
And we're probably going to get surprised. We always do. But yeah, I mean, I just think when you look at the talent on the team, chance to get two, Ashley Book joining the roster. I just think there's a lot of things that point me towards thinking Space Heater can do it this year. So that's what I'm taking. Keith's got Mixtape, and we're going to move on now to the women's division.
Do you want to take any questions before we?
I would be happy to take some questions. Let's take a look at the chat and see where we're at. Well, here's a question that's not directly related to the mixed division, but I think is a relevant one. This is from Joe Mama. How do you think USAU is going to handle teams like Lawless next year, given that this season technically doesn't count for flight status? Because they said before the season, you're not going to be DQ'd from your pro flight status if you don't qualify for it this year. I think it would be crazy for them not to let teams that have a great season come out and play in those elite tournaments next year. So let's say Lawless makes semis, and so they are in the pro flight. I think they absolutely have to let them come to important tournaments next year. To say they're still a classic team that has to just doesn't get any access to the top tournaments just wouldn't make any sense. I think there's only going to be a handful of teams that this applies to, so it shouldn't throw things too out of whack. But I think they're almost certainly going to find a way to get those teams involved into the elite tournaments next year. Otherwise, it just feels like you sort of negated this entire season.
I expect them to kind of lean on what they've already said. Now, maybe they'll find some way, like they'll say, a team like Lawless becomes the top select team in their area. It's not like we haven't seen a lot of major tournaments having to invite teams from beyond that core pro flight, elite flight group. So I don't think that they'll have to be that stringent when it comes to the actual tournament invites. But as far as flight status, yeah, I expect them to lean on what they've already put forward because they're not going to want to change it based on outcomes now.
All right, we're heading over to the women's division. And let's go to Pool A right away. Here we go. Number 1 seed overall is San Francisco Fury. The 2 seed in that pool, the 8 seed overall, New York Bent. Third in the pool, Columbus Rival, the 12 overall, and Minneapolis Pop in the 4 spot, the number 13 overall seed. Fury is going to be the heavy favorite. I expect Fury to get easy games because I think the other teams aren't going to try very long. I think it would be crazy to try to waste a lot of energy and cross players over against the Fury team that's just immensely more talented than the other 3 in this pool. They're all going to recognize that it's going to be very important to your chances to make quarterfinals to win the other 2 games that you have to play. So I expect that to be very interesting. Bent versus Rival versus Pop. Which of those teams comes out on top of that triplet and gives themselves a pretty good chance to make quarters by getting the crossover with the 3 seed out of Pool D?
I'm less enthralled by this pool where I feel like it's to me, Fury is definitely a big step away from everybody. I don't know. There's a chance in my head, like I can see Bent not being able to help themselves if they're in a game with Fury and it's 6-5 or 6-4 or whatever. I feel like I can't see them taking their foot off the gas. They're going to want to try and prove themselves. I just have a feeling this team just has that chip on their shoulder. Maybe to their detriment. Maybe they end up losing to Fury 15-12 in a game they tried really hard, and suddenly they're in a tough position when they go into bracket play. But they might not be able to help themselves. Maybe the tournament format will help them
But
or
let
something
me
like
be
that.
clear. I don't think you sit your starters the whole
No,
game.
yeah, you don't phone it in, but I agree with you. I think that's a big advantage of the 1 seed is that all
Yeah.
the seeds below them are tight, and that means that they can't waste too many resources trying to upset the 1 seed. Uh,
Who?
I do think, however, I don't think Bent is like an incredible team or anything, but I think Rival and Pop are like 15, 16 seed typical year talent teams. I just don't see anything about them that makes me feel like they are going to be able to compete with Fury and Bent. And like, I really I expect blowouts against Fury, and Rival does have they do a great job like having a program where they have no real quit in them. So I don't think they roll over for teams in any real way. So maybe they don't get blown out because it's just not their style. But I just don't see them having the firepower to beat Bent.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see the O versus D matchups in these games. Bent's defense extremely impressive at regionals. Offense not as much. A lot of turnovers, and struggled big time against Brute Squad. Not that it's embarrassing to struggle big time against Brute Squad, but you know, are they able to disrupt the Rival and the Pop offenses enough to mask any issues that their own offense is having? Uh, I think the answer is yes. I think Bent is going to finish second in this pool, but I don't think it's a lock. Bent hasn't been to nationals in quite some time. There's a lot of players who've never been to nationals on the roster. So, that said, they also have some veterans, and that helps too. Really curious to see where this Bent team ends up at this tournament. I don't expect them to beat Fury or really even come close, but I think that they're a quarters team that maybe in the right matchup has a chance.
All right, how about Pool B? You ready to move to Pool B?
Give it to us.
All right, let's talk about Pool B. At the top, the number 2 overall seed, Denver Molly Brown. Portland Schwa is second in the pool. San Francisco Nightlock is the third team in the pool, and Boston Siege is the final team in the pool as the 14 overall seed. So we get the Molly Brown Schwa rematch. We get the revenge game, but unfortunately, I feel like it's lost some of its luster with the way Schwa finished the season. All the injuries that they've had, the season-long loss of Marielle Hammond. The way Molly Brown has performed has been really on the opposite end of the spectrum. So I feel like we've lost some of the shine from what could have been a really awesome matchup. I mean, I still think it could be a really good game. I could even see Schwa still pulling an upset, but it's no longer kind of that like title feel that big heavyweight bout that I think we might have felt like it was if this matchup had happened at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I think unfortunately Schwa's injuries probably have taken them out of real contender status. I do think that could be an extremely exciting game to watch because both teams have big play offenses that like to put it deep, and I'm not going to count Schwa out just because of the injuries. Like I think that they are capable of beating Molly Brown. I think it's much less likely now, but I think it's not out of the question. Um, the big thing to me is that both of those teams feel like pretty far ahead of the teams beneath them in the pool in Nightlock and Siege. Nightlock still maybe could be interesting. I think Siege showed at Northeast Regionals that they're definitely a step behind the top level teams in the division right now. And you see Bent beating Siege, but then Bent getting crushed by Brute Squad. I mean, Siege was down like 8-0 to Brute Squad. Uh, I don't expect quite the same score lines against Molly Brown Schwab, but I also don't think that the teams, Nightlock and Siege, have much of a chance to beat those top two teams. So to me, this is kind of a battle in two parts, right? You have the top two seeds battling for the one spot, and you have the bottom two seeds battling for the last spot in pre-quarters. And kind of a classic story in pool play. We'll see. I think, Schwa's now had time to relearn playing without Hammond. Maybe they've figured it out. The ceiling's lower for sure, but I think that that game will be closer than people expect.
How worried are you about Nightlock after their struggles at regionals.
Well, this is such an interesting set of results at regionals. I think there's good players on this roster, but they didn't come close to Fury in 2 losses. They split with Wildfire. They had a huge win, 13-6, but then also lost 13-10. I don't really know what to make of that. I mean, they haven't really done anything that makes me feel like they're contenders. They also haven't done anything that makes me feel like they're not typical Nightlock, which is going to be a tough out. So, I look at the roster. I mean, I see Ella Hansen coming out to join them this year. I think that's a nice piece to pick up. You can just stick her right on the D-line and let her just chuck bombs on the turn. Marissa Rafter, Natasha Wan. Like, I think this is a solid roster. Again, I just think they're a step behind the other 2 teams in the division, and they'll probably lose in pre-quarters.
That feels like nothing out of the ordinary for what we've come to know from Nightlock. Like you said, a tough out, but they just haven't been able to challenge the contenders in any sort of regular basis. I'm having trouble even thinking of a time in which it really felt like they were putting a scare into one of the elite teams. I'll be curious to see how they match up with Siege, though, because I think that matchup could be pretty even. I think Siege has a similar feel as kind of like an East Coast Nightlock. So I'll be curious to see how those 2 teams stack up against each other, and if either of them really has what it takes to keep up with Schwab. But I'm with you that I'm somewhat skeptical.
I mean, very literally, they're an East Coast Nightlock, right, Siege? Because both of these teams are the second team in the city behind the super powerhouse program in Fury and Brute Squad, who've dominated the women's division for the last 10 years. So they're both good, but they're picking from the next set of 26 players.
And we keep seeing their best players leave,
Yes.
like Shayla Harris is now on Fury, right?
Right.
So we've seen those kind of transitions happen. We've seen players transition from Siege to Brute Squad. So,
I will say this.
It's tough.
The crossovers with C, Riot Wildfire is the 2-3 game in Pool C. It doesn't feel like the winner of that game, let's say it's Riot, if it goes to seed, is like prohibitively a favorite against whoever finishes in the 3rd seed in Pool B.
Agreed. And maybe we'll get the Wildfire Nightlock. I mean, you have definitely some potential for regional rematches there.
Pool C, Brute Squad in the 1 spot out of Boston. Seattle Riot, the 6 seed overall, in the 2 spot. San Diego Wildfire in the 3 spot, the 10 overall. And Florida Tabby Rosa, the 15 seed overall, in the 4th and final spot. I actually think this is kind of compelling. I mean, look, Brute Squad is going to dominate. I think that part's not super interesting, right? It's going to be a lot like Pool A. But after that, you have a Riot team that's not the same team that they used to be. You have a Wildfire team that's had interesting, inconsistent results, a lot of new faces. And you have a Tabby Rosa team that feels a little underseeded at 15 to me. They're not a pushover. So I'm actually expecting that to be kind of a fun battle, similar to the Bent Rival Pop triplet in Pool A. I think that could be more interesting than people expect. I don't really know what to think about Riot this year. This doesn't feel like semifinals Riot, but it also doesn't feel like they're like not going to make the bracket.
No, and I don't know. I don't know either. I mean, when I look at the tape of this Riot team, like, yeah, they don't look like the Riot of old. They don't quite have that same cleanliness. They're not as explosive, but they look better than I expect. When I see a roster full of names that either I don't know or that don't have a ton of elite club experience, which is what they have on paper right now. I mean, to me, this feels a lot like Pool A typically does. You got a top team that feels like it's 2 tiers away from anybody else in the pool, but the rest of the pool feels like they're all pretty clumped together. So, I'm not exactly sure what to expect from those results. Like, I think Tabby is the team that I feel like I know the most about out of the other seeds, because Wildfire, all they did was play in the series. Everybody that they beat, they also lost to. They split with LOL at Southwest Regionals. They split with Nightlock at Southwest Regionals. So, like, we have very, very little conclusive data about Wildfire in any real way. And they had a lot of roster turnover too, not nearly as much as Riot, who, I mean, it is unreal how much roster turnover Riot has. I don't know if there's a team with more new players outside of Parcha in the women's division. But I really don't know what we're going to get from these three teams in this pool, because I expect them all to be fairly competitive with one another. But I think Riot's in a great spot, because I don't think that Wildfire and Tabby are super scary teams to have in your pool. So, that takes some of the intimidation for some of these first time Nationals players.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. You go down the roster, you're like, okay, Sheer Stern, Charlie Eide, Julius Snyder,
It's like 6 returners.
and then you're like, wait a minute, who are the rest of these players? Cleese Cardenas. But this is not the same Riot of the past. A lot of the former Riot players have moved on into the mixed division, and hence we have really, really stacked mixtape and BFG rosters this year. And the thing is, this is Seattle. There's a ton of talent, and there's going to be some 18-year-old you've never heard of who is making huge plays.
Oh, it's Lauren Gadu.
Probably is.
I think she's 16 or 17.
Yeah, I think she's 16.
But apparently she's real damn good. So that's who it is.
Should be fun. A team like this that has a lot of young players, they can flame out, but they can also suddenly surprise. And like this team's not beating Brute Squad, but if they made quarters, it wouldn't blow me away. That's for sure.
No.
So let's move on to Pool D. Who we got?
In Pool D, you get the beautiful 5-4 matchup. Raleigh Phoenix against Vancouver Traffic. Number 9 seed overall and third in the pool, Chicago Nemesis. And bringing up the rear, Pittsburgh Parcha, the brand new kid on the block, the only new team at Nationals, I believe.
Well, this is an interesting pool. I think
shocking.
Yeah, I mean, always. Parcha is the 16. Fascinating. If you look at the frisbee-rankings.com, shout out to Cody Mills, they were like a 10 seed level team by the
and that's about
numbers.
Where they were in the power rankings too for most of the year.
But they had the head-to-head loss to Tabby Rosa that they took at their first tournament, and that pushed them all the way to the 16 seed. Now, they may be underseeded, but that doesn't mean that they're going to win any games in their pool. They're playing the 4, 5, and 9 seeds. For me, this is the Phoenix Traffic matchup is fascinating. That, if Phoenix is for real, they need to win that game by 3 or 4 goals. Traffic lost to Sixers up at the Canadian, quasi-nationals thing. And Phoenix has had a lot of hype preseason, but is dealing with injuries. So I think as often is the case, the 1-2 matchup in Pool D is always very interesting. Certainly this year, that's the case. The winner is probably going to get the opportunity to face Fury in the semifinals. I'm not sure that regardless of who wins, it's going to matter. But I think that I just find that to be the most interesting game in all of pool play in the women's division.
I think I'm with you. I mean, it's very intriguing. This is a pool in which I really feel like we don't know a lot. I mean, it's hard to tell with Parcha because their losses came in literally their first games ever, right? Like the first games that we've ever seen from this team. And then the only other notable results they have are against Grit, who didn't make nationals, and they were very close games with Grit. And Grit has had mixed results during their season. They had some good wins in the first tournament. They beat Bet, but they also, had some tough tournaments too. So like Grit, it provides like a kind of a difficult signpost to use for Parcha. So like I really feel like we don't know who Parcha is. They really must be kicking themselves though about losing that Tabby game, because they could be in the 15 seed right now playing against Wildfire and Riot, like two teams we just talked about how little we know about them, or they could be in the 14 seed playing against a Nightlock team that struggled at regionals. Like, man, if they could have a higher seed, any other 4 seed really, this is the worst draw for them.
It is. And I think they're definitely have a chance to beat Nemesis, but I have more questions about Wildfire and Nightlock, and really for that matter, even Riot and Schwa to some extent, than I do about Nemesis. This is a team that's kind of more consistent. Parch is going to be a popular game pick, I think, Keith.
Super popular.
They're underseeded relative to their ceiling, and I'll talk a little bit about this more on our subscriber bonus segment, but I think that there's a couple players on their roster that if they heat up and their offense gets going, because now they've had some time to develop that chemistry and continuity that you don't have when you're the brand new team playing in your first tournament, that if their O-line can string together some holds, I think that they're going to be competitive with most teams out here.
Definitely. I think that their regular season results, if I saw like that explosive game, like one big upset or something like that, I'd feel very interested in Nemesis's ability to like maybe win this pool, maybe steal it out. But they just didn't have the consistency. Or maybe their problem was they're consistent. They were just kind of like a middling team. A better version of what we've said from Nightlock. They play tough. They play well even against elite teams. They don't get upset a ton. So, they're a team that you feel pretty good about their ability to reach quarterfinals. But because we just don't see those big upsets for them, it's hard to project that they're going to do that again.
I mean, here's the thing about Parcha, right? They eked it out against Grit at regionals. Phoenix, the one seed in their pool, beat Grit 15-5 at Pro Championships.
Ooh.
I mean, so just like have a little perspective here, Parcha.
Maybe Grit really is the measuring stick because Grit lost to Nemesis twice, once 13-6 and once 13-12. So they played every team in the pool.
Interesting. Well, it has come time to make our picks, and I will go first this time with my semifinals picks. Keith, I'm going straight chalk.
Chalk it up.
Straight chalk. Fury
in the women's
Molly,
division, what a shock.
Fury, Molly, Brute, Phoenix. I think they all win their pools. I think they all win their quarters. And this would be a deviation from the upsets that we saw 2 years ago in 2019 when we had, Schwa getting past Molly Brown and Sixers getting past Seattle Riot. But I just think those 4 teams have really showed us this year that they are not only the best rosters, but also the most complete teams. And I think they're all going to win their games up to semis. No losses, except maybe, no, I just think literally no losses.
Oh man, I have a feeling that our picks in the women's division are going to be very similar. We don't have the same semifinals teams though. I'm taking Traffic basically to do what you said Phoenix is going to do. I think they beat Phoenix.
Okay.
I think they take advantage of their bye, and I'm just going to take a quick look just to make sure that they're not going to play somebody I think could beat them necessarily. They get the 2C, 3B. Yeah, I think they would be a great matchup against Riot or Rival. Yeah, so I've got those teams and Traffic. It really feels like the big 3 again. It feels like we're back to the big 3 this year.
If Bent gets second in their pool, who do they play in quarters?
If Bent gets second in their pool, they will have to play the winner of Pool B. They'll play third team in Pool D in pre-quarters, and then they play the winner of Pool B. So they play Molly Brown.
If they get to quarters, they play Molly.
Yeah, Yina Cartagena and Zemania Montana versus Manu.
Unfortunately, Valeria, dealing with the arm injury, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, that would be fun. I mean, I don't think Bent can beat Molly, but that should be a really exciting game. All right, so you've got Traffic, Brute, Molly, and Fury. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, so my semis, my finalists picks, and my champion pick. Here we go. Fury's going to beat Phoenix.
Yeah, I'm gonna just start writing down Fury now.
I think Phoenix at with Ann Worth would have been an interesting conversation to have, but I think there's just not quite enough firepower. Fury's just been so good. I don't know, man. I still think that's going to be a good game. I think everybody's just been chalking Fury up to just dominate, and you know what? Maybe they will, but I think that the semis are going to be really exciting this year. Am I going to pick Molly to beat Brute again?
That is the question, everybody.
It was a great game at Pro Championships, but I've seen this story play out too many times, Keith.
Oh no.
I mean, I have. How many times have we seen this story? I just think that once there's time to prep, once the push comes to shove, Brute Squad at Nationals is just really, really good, and they're gonna beat Molly Brown in the semifinals, and it's tough. It would be really fun to see Molly win that game. I just don't think it's gonna happen. I think Brute Squad has too much depth and will be ready to make the adjustments necessary to disrupt Molly's offense and not get so flustered by what Molly did to them defensively. We've seen Brute Squad have regular season struggles, even regional struggles in the past couple of seasons, and yet when we get to nationals, there they are every time. So that's happening again. I firmly believe that. I mean, their roster's upgraded compared to 2019. So I have Fury versus Brute Squad in the final. That shouldn't come as a huge shock. The real question is who's going to win that game. I think it's Fury's year. I think it's Fury's year. I think that the roster's unbelievable. They pick up Anna Thompson, and just you look at the results that they've put on the board. I mean, even though some of it's been unsanctioned and whatnot, I mean, they've just been so unbelievably dominant. It's crazy. I mean, it looks like an all-star team. It really does. And Dina Elamelik's on this team again now, along with all of these legends and some really good young players. Like they just have the full package. Like you could pick 7 players at random from their lineup, and that's going to be better than a lot of teams' top 7. I'm serious.
How Fury XY do they still make semis?
Okay, Keith, let's just do a thought experiment. I want you to give me 7 numbers between 1 and 26, and I will write them down.
Oh my god!
And we're gonna make a lineup. Okay?
We're really gonna do it?
Yeah, go. Starting with the lowest digit first. Don't look at the roster. Just give me.
I'm not looking. I'm not looking. 2.
Okay.
3.
Hang on. Okay.
9.
Okay.
11.
6, 9. Okay. 11. Okay.
20.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20. Okay.
21.
21. All right.
Is that 5 or 6?
You get one more.
26 for Miles' birthday.
Okay. I think there's only 25 on this roster that I'm looking at right now.
Okay, give me 25.
Here you go. Here you go. Nancy Sun, Opie Payne, Lisa Cooper, Sharon Lynn, Maggie Rudin, Beth Kaler, and Jessica O'Connor.
I can't believe it. Oh man, I really like XY. I think they easily make quarters. Right? Like it's ridiculous. Look, I also have Fury. I have Fury getting to the final. I'm the Brute Squad Molly Brown question. It's funny. Have you ever heard the Batman prep time argument, Charlie?
I don't know what that is.
So the idea that that the joke is that Batman could defeat any superhero, even though he has no superpowers, provided that he has enough prep time. Like with enough time to prepare, his ability to plan and outsmart would allow him to defeat even the most powerful supervillain, or superhero, even though he has no powers. That's how you sound with Brute Squad. They're not prep time. They're gonna beat Molly Brown, no problem. And I'm with you. I mean, you're right that the history of the women's division has been just bet the teams that look like have been the better team. Like until somebody proves you wrong, just keep betting the team that's won historically, because that's been the price of the women's division. And this Brute Squad team, it's not like they aren't good. We thought they were going to be as good as this Fury team to start the year. And the roster is crazy. It's not quite as crazy as Fury's, but it's crazy as well. And they looked a lot like a team that was still figuring things out. While I felt like Molly Brown looked like a team that was playing closer to their best. And maybe that's not fair to say, oh, well, the team played worse than the other team, so that means they're going to be better at nationals. But the background is the context is a little more complex than that. I got to take Brute Squad in this matchup, and then I'm taking Fury, not just to win the title. I'm thinking they win pretty comfortably. I'm thinking they win 15-10, 15-11.
Wow. That's
We're not going to get a Brute Squad Fury classic like we love. I think we get a Fury crushing. They're really, really damn good. They're the best team in any division.
Oh, that's an interesting conversation to have potentially. All right, well, let's move. Let's keep it rolling. We've got a lot to get to still.
We do. Let's quick question here. So one of the first questions we got from Colby Clarkson. If this was a normal year, are there any teams that we think wouldn't have made nationals? Would the bid allocations be different, or would something have changed for these teams that prevented them from making nationals? Anybody who jumps out at you in that way?
Let me see. Well, there was only one bid for that region, so that would be fine. There's only one
I think
bid for that
the only
region.
real bid change might have been in women's. The Southeast would have lost their second bid, which would have gone to the Northwest, according to
May-
FrisbeeRankings.com.
yeah,
And I could see that
maybe
playing
though.
out.
I don't know though. Tabby was pretty good. I feel like that. Like you
That's
can't
just what Frisbee
totally
Ranking
play it.
said.
Sure, but you can't totally play that out because like if Tabby was knew that they could have gone to more events, whatnot. Um, maybe.
Oh, I guess actually in mixed, the Northeast really gets hammered.
I
Uh,
question whether the Southwest would have had top three teams this year
right.
in women's.
Yeah, definitely not good for the Northeast in the traditional bid ranking sense. They only get one, I think, in mixed.
There you go. I mean, you
So
heard what
that's
I
so that
said,
would really change things. That the Great Lakes would have been the big beneficiary there. So
right?
that could
Right.
certainly have changed things. Are there any teams that outside of seeding stuff, like or outside of bid stuff, like I know it's really hard to project. I don't know. It's like I don't. There's some teams I don't even know if they come together if we don't have this type of season. I think Riot, for example, would be in a much more stable position.
Well,
Uh,
also, Parcha, I think they were going to form.
yes,
It was pretty clear at the end of 2019 that there was just going to be this new Pittsburgh team, but would they be at nationals? No, right? Because if Scandal existed still, then I think Scandal beats Parcha comfortably.
it's hard to really make a ton of assumptions on that front. But yeah, I agree with you on that.
Good question. Good question.
There was
Um,
another good question that I want to come back to, which is Chris Epps is like, who do we think are the most important players for our finals teams? But let's go through our men's and see who's going to be in the finals for men's.
all right, let's do it. Pool A, take us through it, Keith.
All right, Pool A, number one overall seed, Seattle Sockeye. Also from the Northwest is the second team, Portland Rhino Slam! Exclamation point. Pittsburgh Temper is the third team in the pool, and Boulder Lotus, the Colorado Mama Bird Club, in the fourth spot in the pool.
Lotus is going to win a game at nationals. I'm going to say that right now.
All right.
I think they might be Temper.
I mean,
Say that.
their resume is pretty legit.
They're solid. They're really solid. I think they're easily the best 4 seed, and not just because they're the highest seeded of them. Like, I don't really. I honestly, I will not be surprised if Dig and Sprout both get blanked, and the Killjoys just have a brutally tough pool. Um, so Lotus, I think, legit. Like, I would not want to play them. So elsewhere in this pool, look, I mean, Sockeye is the class here. I think teams are going to be smart, just like we talked about in the women's division, not trying to expend too much energy against them. Sockeye earned the 1 seed this year, and they get the benefit of not only do they get the 8, 12, 13, but they get a team they know really well as their 2 seed in Rhino, a team they're going to feel very comfortable defeating. So I think that's really helpful for them as opposed to having to play, a truck stop, right? That like gave them trouble at pro championships, or Revolver, a team that has beaten them. So I think that getting Rhino as the 8 by getting the 1 seed is really big for them. I really like Rhino in the 2 spot here. Frankly, my only sort of like spicy pick here is that Lotus could beat Temper, and maybe they picked that, but I think otherwise the top 2 seeds go to Chalk.
I do think Lotus could be Temper, but I will say Temper does have a head to head. Maybe by one goal, if memory serves. So Temper has beaten Lotus once this year, and they're 1-0. So use that for whatever you want. But I do think that much like Pool A in the women's division, I feel like the top two teams are in two tiers of their own, away from the rest of the teams. I like Rhino a lot, but I like Sockeye even more. So I really think that Temper Lotus is a coin flip. Lotus, if they had been worse, they could have been in a different pool and maybe had better results. I'm sure they'd love to be in Bravo's pool, perhaps, but maybe they'd hate that. I don't know. But I'm with you. Sockeye and Rhino feel like they're going to be at the top of this pool pretty comfortably.
Pool B, Chicago Machine in the 1 spot, number 2 overall. Washington D.C. Truck Stop, the 2 seed in the pool, 7th overall. SoCal Condors, the 3, 11 overall, and Boston Dig in the 4 spot, number 14 overall. And look, I think there's 3 scary teams in this pool. I think that as good as Machine has been, you cannot overlook the ability of Truck Stop or Condors to beat them and take this pool away from them. I just think, Condor's offense so impressive. Truck Stop has just proven to punch above their weight, and shout out to the coaching of Daryl Stanley, who's just been phenomenal, uh, both in the AUDL season, kind of getting that team to overperform, and now as the assistant coach for Truck Stop this year. But Alex Crew did a great job with this team to get them to the point where they made the Pro Championships final, and they very well could have won that game. They kind of let a bad call spiral them into a big, 5 straight from Sockeye or something like that. And not there. It's not that they're in a team that can't lose. They've got losses on the ledger, but they also have a lot of really good wins. 13-10 over Bravo, 14-12 over Rhino. Dominant performance so far in the series. I think that, when you look at Nate Pryor and Christian Johnson, like, there's a lot of talent on this team that, maybe doesn't get the total credit that you hear from some other teams. But I think this is a really scary pool. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Did we lose Keith? Wow, it seems like we lost Keith. We'll see if he joins back up in just 1 second. While we wait for Keith, let me take a look here. You look at the top of this pool, of course, and we can talk about Machine. The big problem for Machine has not been their ability to compete against the teams that are seated below them. I mean, they only have 2 losses on the year, but they both came to Sockeye. And so I think a lot of people are going to focus, like, sort of looking ahead for a Machine. Where do they end up? How do they compete with Sockeye in a hypothetical final? And I think that's very fair. But I think they have to get through the gauntlet first. They only beat Truck Stop 15-13 back at the U.S. Open, and they did handle Condors pretty comfortably 15-9, and they're really, really good. They have big time firepower on offense. Pavlianis, Joe White, Keegan North, and one of the, as they've already established, an incredibly talented defensive line that basically kept them in the game back in 2019 against Sockeye, and brought them back to the point where they had an actual chance to win that game. So Keith is back with us. Keith, we're just talking about Pool B and Machine. Can you hear me? Are you good to go?
I can you hear me? Okay. Well, you got it all of doing it live, right? This is what you get. I don't think we've ever had my computer crash during a recording, but we got it here. But yes, I'm back. So we're talking Pool B, right?
Yes, we are.
So yeah, I caught most of what you said. And I agree with you. This is a scary pool, but Machine has been really good. So it's hard to pencil them anywhere but at the top of the pool, I guess. Like, I can see them dropping a game to Truck Stop or Condors, but it doesn't feel very likely. I don't. I have trouble with this pool because I think both of those teams are competitive. There's a question about what do you do with Condors, given the rest of their season on top of, they get the big win over Revolver. What does it mean? They have the win over Sockeye, so like they beat Pony. The ceiling games on this team are really good, and that's scary. But they're also a team that has lost their head-to-heads against the teams in this pool. They lose to Truck Stop 15-13. They close out the U.S. Open. They lose to Machine pretty handily. I don't know, man. If you're Machine, you're not going to be happy about the draw because I think that these are very good teams that they have to play against. But that's kind of the deal here, Nationals. I mean, I think that the men's division is very deep at the top right now, and I think picking this pool to go to chalk is a totally reasonable position. But you feel like it could go to chalk, but with a bunch of 2-point margin
Yeah.
games along
Yeah.
the way.
Well, think about this. This is what's crazy about Condors. Before regionals, when they beat Revolver 13-9, they only had 2 wins against the Nationals field, and they came against Pony and Sockeye. I'm sorry, what? I must say, their win against Sockeye was the first game of the season,
It's
and
true.
Sockeye was playing depth back at Pro Elite, first game post COVID. So I don't know how much stock you really want to put into that game, but it's still worth noting that they've gotten wins against teams that you would expect them to lose, and that 13-9 win and their dominant run through sectionals and regionals does seem to point to the potential that this team has. I think what's tough is that they have to play against two elite defenses in Truck Stop and Machine. Can they play through that pressure? I don't know. Because I don't know that I think Revolver has an elite defense.
I don't know either. I mean, it's really hard to say about Condors or Revolver. Who is that regional result more indicative of?
Sure.
Is it a sign that Condors is really good, or is it a sign that Revolver is not that good? Like, I just don't really know. And we can make all the excuses we want about the Pony and Sockeye losses, but Condors went out and got good wins. I mean, I'm pretty sure Dig is a pretty far distance from the rest of these teams, but I guess I can't really see Machine finishing third in the pool. Maybe it's, but like I can see any of these teams beating any of the other ones.
Dig is not beating anybody.
No, not excluding Dig.
But I mean, I basically agree. I mean, I think you think the Machine's probably the favorite, but I could see all three of those teams going 2-1. That feels like a very real possibility, and then it goes to point diff. So picking this one's going to be tough. We'll get to our picks in a bit. Pool C, who do we got, Keith?
All right, in Pool C at the top of the pool, Raleigh Ring of Fire, the 3 overall seed, despite not playing a single regular season game. Revolver, the number 6 seed overall. Denver Johnny Bravo is the 3rd spot in this pool, and Amherst Sprout bringing up the last seed, the 15 overall seed in Pool C.
Well, give us your thoughts, Keith.
Well, I mean, all eyes are going to be on Ring Revolver with all the history that these two teams have, and so little to go off of with Ring. There's a lot of storylines here. I mean, you got all the new players on this Ring team. What are they going to look like against Revolver, Bravo? How are they going to perform with the big names that they've added to this team? Revolver, a ton of turnover for them. We got to see a little bit more of them in the regular season, so we have a better sense of what they're bringing. But I mean, they have a lot of players who people may not be familiar with in big time roles. Your Dylan Whitehead's playing a big role. Riley Kirkman Davis is playing a big role. Evan Magskick, like they've like players that you may not even know who they are, who now are in big spots for Revolver. So I think a lot of people are going to be curious about both of these teams and what they look like. However, we're going to get some games before that. Like, I don't know that I'm really buying any real stock in Sprout or anything like that. But this Bravo team is not soft. They didn't quite have like any big wins in the regular season. I guess they get the win over Pony. But they were also very competitive with the teams they played. They played close with Sockeye. They played a good game against Machine. They played a good game against Revolver. Obviously not good to have that head-to-head loss, but they're not going to be, a layup for anybody. So I think it's kind of a chance for Ring and Revolver to cut their teeth before they play against each other.
Look, I think Ring is going to dominate this pool. I think Revolver is a team that's going to be good in 4 years. This is not a team that's built to win at this year's Nationals. They're too young. They're too inexperienced. I think the fact that you see them lose 13-9 to Condors tells you a lot. And I know they had some good results, at the Pro Championships. It's not like they're incapable of winning games. Still a good team. Still great players. And a lot of their young players are really exciting talent. But I just think it's too hard to go through the gauntlet. Even if they get the easy one against Sprout, I think they're closer to Bravo than they are to Ring. So, yeah, I mean, I think Ring is probably going to dominate this pool, but I'm still excited to see them play against Ring.
What is up with Pool C's this year? I mean, I said the same thing in the women's division. Pool C felt like Pool A. And I think that's kind of true here too. I mean, I think I agree with you that Ring is probably a big step away, and Revolver and Bravo are probably closer together than anybody else. And then I think Sprout's probably pretty far away.
So I mean, I think the real question is like, where is this Revolver team? Do they push Ring? Is Ring's rotations in good shape? I don't even know if they know the answer to that question. Like until you're in the games, it's hard to know. Obviously you learn a lot during the Flyer season, but then you're adding a bunch of new pieces. They have so much talent though. Like it's hard for me to see them not comfortably winning all of the games in this pool. And comfortable might mean 13-10, but it'll be like a 13-10 where they're in control the entire game.
This to me feels like the pool where it's most likely to go seed.
I agree with that. Let's go to the gauntlet that is Pool D. Sub-Zero out of Minneapolis, your number 1 team in the pool, number 4 overall. Atlanta Chain Lightning, the 5 seed overall. Pony out of New York, the 9 seed overall. And the Killjoys, the bottom seed at the tournament and in this pool out of Utah. So our first appearance of a Utah team at Nationals in, I don't know, maybe ever. I wouldn't be shocked if there was like a team back in the 90s or something, but certainly nothing in the recent years. And they have to go up against 3 really, really good teams in Sub, Chain, and Pony. And I think a lot of people are going to just look and be like, okay, Pony's going to put it all together. They're about to come out and win this pool. Like, boom, they got this. I'm going to say not so fast. I feel like we need to like look at what we've seen and evaluate what this Pony team is going to be when they add back the pieces that they were missing. Are they better than they were in the middle of the season? Yes. Are they good enough to beat Chain and Sub? I don't actually know. I am not convinced. I do not think this Pony team is a championship contender. I will come out there and I will say it right now. For me, they're borderline semis team at best. At best. I have not seen enough for me to feel confident that they can go out and beat the top teams. Them beating Dig and Sprout at regionals does not tell me much. It really doesn't. I think they're going to be better. I think Ben Yacht helps their offense a great deal. I think Ben Katz adds a lot to their D-line. Marquez Brownlee is really impressive. They're a solid team. Very good team. Quarters plus. But I think Chain wins this pool, Keith.
Whoa. Okay. All right. I'm Charlie. I'm pretty disappointed to hear that, actually.
Why is that?
Because I was also going to pick Chain to win this pool. I get falling in love with the names on Pony. I get seeing the Empire and Pony crossover, but this is not. There was a season between 2018 and now, right? Like, did I forget that 2019? Did the other people forget that 2019 happened? Mm-hmm. Like, this is not the Pony team that went out and crushed Revolver to win that statement championship. In 2019, yes, they made semifinals. They got routed by Machine in that semifinal. You know who they played a double game point game with in pool play at that Nationals in 2019? Sub-Zero. Right? Very close. They narrowly beat Rhino in quarterfinals. So this is a team that almost lost to Sprout in 2019.
That's
at
true.
Regionals.
They almost missed Nationals.
So it's
legitimately, if Jeff Graham doesn't pull his hamstring, they might have not been at the national championships in 2019.
So I'm not saying Pony's not good and that they couldn't reach semifinals this year. They certainly could. The talent is there. I get why people get excited about them, but you can't just gap 2019 out. Like, they had struggles in 2019. And I think you have to build that into how you view this year's team too.
They also had a bad season. They're the 9 seed for a reason. They're not the 9 seed because USAU has a vendetta against them. They're the 9 seed because they lost a lot of games. And yes, they were missing some players, but they also had horrific offense for most of the year. It is what it is. I've learned to trust my eyes. And what I have seen is not a team that's going to win a title. And it doesn't mean that they can't win this pool. I think they're capable. I think Sub-Zero is a little overinflated as the 1 seed in this pool. I think Chain is definitely tough. But I also think what I've seen from Sub has made me buy into them more. At some point, I need to say to myself, okay, I know they lost Ryan Osgar, but the results are the results. They've been really good. They deserve to get a 4 or a 5 seed. They got the 4. I had them as the 5. Makes no difference. It's the same matchups. So I think Sub's actually really good. And so is Chain. And I mean, it's going to be super fun to watch those teams compete because I do think Pony is better than they were earlier in the year. But I also think that, Chain has kind of shown us that they're capable of really playing tough. I mean, they only have one bad loss. Is it bad? They lost 15-13 to Sub. It was their second game of the season. Otherwise, their losses are to Machine and to Ring, the 2 and the 3 seed at the tournament. And they've won a lot of games, including smashing Sub-Zero 11-6 in Constellation. They beat Rhino. They beat Truck comfortably. So, fascinating pool.
It really is. It really is. I know everybody's excited to see how these three teams finish out. I mean, would you be shocked to see 2-1s for all three of them? No, I wouldn't.
No. I mean, I think it's very possible that, Chain beats Pony and Killjoys and loses to Sub, and Sub, loses to Pony. Yeah, I can see that. Could Killjoys upset one of these teams? There's a question for you, Keith. Can it happen?
Very slim chance. I agree with you. I think that they're better than people think they are, and still that they won't win any games.
The other teams in this pool are going to look past them. Danger. Killjoy is a solid team. They're going to have their full roster the whole time. No Sunday stuff.
Let's see. They play Chain and Sub in the first 2 rounds. So Sub's going to come off this Pony game. That's the trap game to me. Sub Killjoys.
Right.
If you want your Killjoys upset, round 2, 11:15 a.m. on Thursday. That's the one to look at.
We'll see. All right, it's time to make our semis picks. Keith, you're up first.
All right. Man, as much as I like, I'm looking for an upset in Pool B. I just don't see one. So I got to take Sockeye, Machine, Ring, and I'm taking Chain to win the pools. Where does that put me in the bracket? Charlie, I've searched high and low to try and find a way to get Rhino to semis. I want to buy the Rhino stock. Like, I really do. But the format's just not friendly. The format's not friendly.
Who do they play? If they finish second in their pool,
if they finish second in their pool,
quarters,
they play the 3 seed from Pool D in pre-quarters, and then they play Machine in
which
quarters.
Which is already a tough game.
Yeah.
And then they play Machine.
Yeah.
There's no way they're
going to get past. They have just a terrible draw.
It's a terrible draw. It's a terrible draw.
Look, I'm thinking they make it to that Machine game and they lose on double game point, kind of like a Pony in 2019. Wow. So I think they're going to give Machine a real scare. That's my prediction. As much as I've been looking for that round of spot, but so I think Machine makes it. I think that Sockeye also you can just pencil them into semifinals. So Chain plays the winner of 3B 2C. So like Condor's Revolver or Truck Revolver or something like that. Man, Chain and Truck. That would be an interesting one if it were to happen. I don't think it's going to work out that way. Am I going to pick Chain to make semis? All right. Chain's going to semis. It's a weird thing. Hey, I had Sprocket in semis, so I've made weirder picks today. And then in Pool C, I've got Ring against probably Pony. That's exciting.
Those teams have had a lot of close games over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah. Only Ring of Fire has like the 2 best players who should be on Pony. So I think I got to take Ring there. Yeah. That would be fireworks though. So I guess that gives me, all my pool winners making semis. It's not exciting, but it's an exciting path to get there.
Well, we have the same pool winners. I'm going to take those teams to win their pools as well. I am going to take Sockeye to make semis. I'm going to take Machine to make semis. I'm going to take Ring to make semis. And is it just as simple as this? Like, okay, so if Chain wins a pool, like I say, they're going to play 2C, 3B.
Yeah.
Which means likely, let's say, Bravo, Revolver, Condors, or Truck. some one of those four teams. And I actually do think it matters who they draw there,
Truck's the
but
scary one, right?
ultimately, well, you know what I think is interesting about Truck? If they win, if they go to seed, right, and they are the 2B and they win their pre-quarter, then they're going to play Sockeye, which is actually a very interesting game because Truck showed that they could match up really well with Sockeye in that Pro Champs final. I would love for that to be the matchup because I do not think it's going to be any kind of easy road for Seattle Sockeye. But ultimately, Keith, I think I take the same four teams.
Right. It feels wrong, but it's right.
I mean, look, I think Sub or Pony winning that pool shakes everything up. Could Truck or Condors disrupt things with Machine? I think it's possible, but I am going to stick with the teams that I think are going to win their pool, get that crucial bye, and so those are my four semis teams. Keith, who you got in finals?
All right, I'm going to start writing in Sockeye for your finals picks because that's who I'm picking to make the final. And then we get Machine and Ring. What do they say about Machine and Ring, Charlie? What's the age old phrase?
As you don't. Machine only beats Ring like once every 15 years or something. I forget. I forget what the little phrase was.
I'm taking Ring, man. I feel bad for Machine because they're really good, but yeah, I'm gonna take Ring. This is enough time for them to kind of like bring it together. They have a lot of the things that they already needed to like have the chemistry. They've got just the perfect balance. I mean, Machine has a lot of the same things, a nice combination of depth and star power, but I just think Ring has those things, but more of it. So I'm going to take Ring.
I don't think Chain can beat Sockeye.
No, I don't think so either.
So I'm taking Sockeye. Can Ring pull it off? I kind of like the matchup with Machine to some extent, but you know what? I'm gonna say Machine wins the game. I think Machine, the fact that they have played more of a season, that's gonna end up mattering, and it's gonna outshine the talent. And it's not like Machine's not talented; they're super talented. Machine has only lost to Sockeye. It feels like destined to get the rematch this year, so I'm taking Machine Sockeye. Who you win it? Who's winning, Keith?
Oh man, this is hard. It's crazy that it's hard because this is a team that has a Ring team that we know so little about, and a Sockeye team that's done nothing but look awesome. I'm gonna take Sockeye to repeat. I'm taking Sockeye to repeat. They just feel like they've done one of the things that I've always said is the mark of a champion, which is they can win without playing their best, and they've done that on plenty of occasions this year. So I think if it all comes together at the national championships, they're just going to be the best team.
It's so hard to repeat.
It is.
But what I will say is this. After 2017, Revolver won in 17, right?
So. Yes.
Come to 2018, and Pony was a very serious contender, and Revolver still looked like the favorite, but there were questions, right? When we had this same podcast in 2018, it was like, Pony had maybe beaten Revolver at some point during the season, maybe at the U.S. Open, and it was like, but it's Revolver, they're gonna make it happen. I remember I took Revolver. Wrong. Pony dominates them. 2019 comes around. And you're like, okay, Pony looking so good again. No, they never looked right the whole season. They never looked like the team that was going to win again. And then they didn't. The thing that's different about this year is that Sockeyes looked like the best team all season. Yes, they've had bad games. Yes, they've even lost a couple games. But we haven't even seen Dylan Freechild dominate the game the way we know he's capable of. And the difference is that I just feel like we've seen a level of dominance from Sockeye that you can't ignore. And I'm loath to pick a repeat, but ultimately I'm going to pick it. because I think that they have the most talent. I think that they also pretty much have the most depth, and I think that they're going to get a matchup that they're really going to be very strong in. Now, like if they get Ring, I think is more of a question, but they've owned this Machine matchup. I'm not sure I trust Machine's offense. Like Joe White was just horrific at Pro Champs. Like he has to play better than that, and he can obviously, but I want to see teams show me they can win. And I feel like we've seen that with Sockeye time and time again, winning all of the big TCT events that they attended. And I can't not pick them.
Charlie, that was just Joe White's annual tradition of a poop tournament. He just one tournament just goes out there and stinks it up, and it's good to get it out of the way before nationals.
Yeah, it's fair. You may be right, but I just don't know that I trust this team against the defensive Sockeye to go out there and beat them after losing to them twice this season.
I think it's simpler than you're making it. Like Sockeye has looked like the best team pretty much the entirety of the year, almost game in and game out. Even in the games that they're losing, they look really good. They look. You can see where the seams are and how easy they would be to plug up those holes. It's just like it's not that complicated. I don't think they've looked like the best team, and they've done nothing to disprove the idea that they are.
Oxshot says that they're going to lose in quarters. I actually think that their quarters matchup could end up being their worst matchup. I think if they, like I said, I think if they catch Truck in quarters, that's actually scarier matchup for them than Chain in semis or Machine in finals. Matchups matter. Them losing in quarters feels more likely to me than them losing in finals, as weird as that may sound.
Yeah, I kind of can see that too. I can see that journey. We've seen that from teams in the past. We've seen teams get those scares during the early bracket matchups. I don't know why it plays out that way, but we've certainly seen it before. We had an earlier comment from James Highsmith saying that he wants I want live pre-draft rankings for the captain's role in the men's division fantasy game. And you mentioned Oxshot, who's also in the chat. So we do have a fantasy ultimate for this club championships. We have a game, one for each division. You can play in all three. You actually get a bonus points if you do. And Akshat was kind enough to help put that together for us. And you pick like a captain, you pick players for different positions, and they get different stats based on what position there is. So, go ahead and check that out on the site along with the game, which we're coming up to giving our game picks. And the Beat Charlie Challenge, where you can just straight up pick against Charlie, also coming out soon. So lots of fun stuff for the club championships on top of just watching the streams and reading the coverage.
Yeah, I'm super excited to get all of these my entries into all of these games. Pick my full. So good luck against me. I'm gonna beat everybody though. So
are you concerned, Charlie? I'm looking at our picks, which are very similar. We have the only points of difference. We have one different quarterfinalist or semifinalist in mixed. We have Machine versus Machine and Ring as a difference in men's finalists. And then we have one different quarterfinalist in women's. So we have different champions in mixed. You have Space Hero and I have mixed tape. So our picks are very, very similar.
It's true.
And they're also very top heavy. In a year where we feel like we know the least and where the seeding could be the least flawed, how did we end up with one seeds basically across the board in a lot of cases? In fact, you have the one seed in every pool in every division except that you have Chain, the 5 overall seed, beating the 4 overall seed.
And maybe I will end up being wrong, but like find the upsets.
I know. Look, we have picked too similarly for us to be right. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I usually do pretty well with these picks every year. I mean, that's what I'll say. Like, I agree, but I'm not going to pick. I'm not going to pick teams at random just because it's an unusual year. I won't be surprised to see some upsets along the way. But I also think that the top teams, it feels like talent sort of pooled towards top rosters this year a little bit. And so I'm looking at the rosters, I'm looking at the results, and I'm trusting what I'm seeing. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I thought we'd have more differences. I don't know. I thought you'd pick Pony.
I feel like if you go out to, yeah, I know it's funny you picked Chain, and I was like, oh man, he stole mine. That was going to be my like big pick. Was Chain is gonna what it's gonna do it. I think that if you extended like out to quarters or pool results, like you'd start to see a lot more differences than us, and maybe that's just true in general. But uh, I think at the top we feel like we have a good sense of who the best teams are,
Right.
and that's just like that's pretty typical of most years.
Yeah. It's gonna be really exciting. That's all I know. I hope that we're wrong because it will mean that there will be big surprises. All right, game picks. Hashtag the game. Everybody should get their picks in. Keith, give us the basic ground rules before we announce our picks here on the show.
All right. So the way that the game works is this is for the club. We have a specific rule for club and specific for college. We've been doing this for years now. It's actually become a nice, fun annual or biannual, I guess, activity. So the way the game works is you're going to pick 5 teams, and you can't have more than 2 from any division. So that requires that you pick somebody from all 3 divisions as well, just by nature.
Yep. Yep.
So you can't pick you can't pick more than 2 from a division, and their combined total seed must be 36 or higher. If you can get a 20-point bonus if you pick a combined total seed of 42 or higher.
Mm.
So if you go up and you pick a few more upsets, you get the extra bonus points. If you win a pool play game or a pre-quarter game, you get 10 points per win. If you win your pool, you get 10 points. You get 15 points for wins in the quarters, 20 points for wins in the semis, and you get 25 points for winning the national championship. So 20 points is a nice bonus, but it takes you away from picking a lot of those top seeds.
Sure.
So you gotta weigh the risk for yourself. And this is sponsored by Friction Gloves. So we greatly appreciate their support for putting on the game, which is really like one of my favorite parts about nationals.
All right, Keith, you're up first. I'm literally finalizing my picks right now.
Oh, me too, man. I knew I was going to be finalizing them on the show, so you get to listen into the thought process, everybody. So I know that there's some teams that I really want to take, and I'm probably not. I'm trying not to overthink this, I guess, this year, which probably is a mistake. I'm really just looking for where do I think teams are really good and underseeded. So for me, one of the first teams that I felt like I really want to take is Rhino. I mean, I just really like Rhino. I think they're the lowest seeded team that I could see like making a run to the final or something like that. And they're the 8th seed. Now, as we laid out, maybe I need to back off them because they're stuck in such a crappy spot. Like they either have to beat Sockeye or they have to play against in the toughest crossover, basically in pre-quarters. So it feels really risky to pick them, and maybe I'm going to back off it. But originally, my first picks were Rhino and Space Heater. Space Heater, number 6 overall in the mixed division. They're a team that I felt like was a title contender all year long. I think 6 is underseeded for them. So I'm definitely going to take Space Heater. I know that they will be one of the most popular picks, though. They're going to be a chalky pick. So that's no surprise to me. Are there any teams jumping out at you, Charlie, to start your picks off?
I'm almost definitely going to take Space Heater. I feel like I'm getting great value at 6 for a team that I think is going to win the championship. Picking the team that wins the championship is usually a very good strategy in the game if it's not clear. A lot of the best teams in the past, the winning combinations have been picking like 2 or 3 of the champions, along with, in some cases, almost throwaway teams or like teams that get 1 win in pool play. Now, Keith has changed up the scoring a little this year to get the 20 bonus points for getting to 42 is pretty appealing, which in some ways could make it even more appealing to try to pick winners. But I think for me, Space Heater is an obvious standout. I think a lot of people are going to pick Pony. Feels a little too risky for me. I'm not confident enough that they're going to actually go out and win those games in pool play to want to take them. So Space Heater, and then I kind of like Parcha at the 16, just because I think you get a lot of points in a team that I feel like could get a win in pool play. Maybe they get a chance to win a pre-quarter. I don't know. It's tough when you start to get to those more bottom teams that you have to pick in order to balance out your lineups.
All right, so I'm definitely going with Space Heater. You are too. I'm gonna do it. So I'm going with Love Tractor. I get a bunch of points for this. I don't want to pick Parcha because I don't like A, their pool, and B, they're going to be, they could be the most popular team. I think that your
Yeah.
top most popular teams are going to be Space Heater, Parcha, and Pony. I think that they're, the 1 seeds, the 2 seeds, and Condors and Sprocket, those are all going to be very popular. But I'm going to go a different direction with Love Tractor. I think Love Tractor is not going to get a lot of picks, so it's going to differentiate my group. I can basically pick chalk with Love Tractor and feel pretty good about it. But I think that their pool opens up opportunity for them to get wins. And I just don't know that I see that in a lot of other places for 4 seeds. I just don't see a lot of 4 seeds who feel like they are in a favorable pool and are talented. Yes, I'm scared of Love Tractor's resume. Yes, I'm scared of the poor results. But I like the talent, and I like the situation, and I like the big number. So I'm taking Love Tractor as a number 14, and I do think that's going to open up the potential for me to go for the bonus points.
Yeah, it's an interesting question of whether you're going to go for the bonus points. I'm just going to lay out my picks. I think I've got them.
Okay.
You ready to go here? So I
Yes,
said,
you
I'm
got
taking
Space Heater.
Taking Space Heater. I'm taking Hybrid, the 9 seed in the mixed division.
Okay.
That puts me at 15.
And no more mixed teams.
That's correct. I'm taking Fury.
Always good to get a title team in there.
Puts me at 16. So I need 20 more points. And I need 26 if I want to get the bonus. I am taking Condors.
Okay.
The 11.
Yep.
So that puts me where?
You need 9 or
15?
Or 15.
Give me Parcha. I want the bonus points.
All right. I like it. Charlie going for the bonus points. No team seeded. I guess you got one seed in there, showing you can get it done with a 1 seed if you're willing to pick some double digits after that.
So I've got, like I said, I've got Parcha, Fury in the women's division, Space Heater, and Hybrid in the mixed division, and I have Condors in the men's division.
Yes. Very interesting slate, and going for the bonus points and still keeping Fury, which is very much a strategy that I was looking at trying to execute for myself. I have to address this in the chat. Brian Jones, head coach of Pony, says, I'm no longer coaching with you, Keith. He's not only the head coach of Pony, right now he's the assistant coach of the UConn women's college team, UConn Rise. And I guess that relationship is over now that I've trashed Pony for the duration of the podcast. Look, the Northeast stinks. It's a stinky region right now in the men's division. So I'm just not convinced by
You're
Pony's,
going all in on the.
I'm not convinced by Pony's results at regionals. So, look, I'm harboring hope for Pony though. I'm a big Chris Kotcher fan. Everybody knows this. Okay, so the rest of my picks here. So I'm at 28 if I take Rhino, Space, and Love Tractor, which puts me in a very comfortable position. So if I want to get to the 42 from 28, I need 14 more. So if I take a 1 seed, I need a 13 or lower. Ooh. And if I take a 1 seed, I definitely want Fury. That does work if I take Fury and Parcha. I'm just not convinced by Parcha. I
get it.
Maybe I want Tabby. I don't know. Like, I can see them beating Wildfire, and that's appealing to me because I don't think I do wish that I felt better about their ability to finish second in the pool. Maybe I want Schwa because they're going to get a good crossover, so they're going to get a pre-quarter that feels good too. Right? Do the B teams cross over? Let me see where B crosses over.
B crosses to C. Oh,
okay,
you mean in quarters, or you mean in pre-quarters?
In pre-quarters.
B
crosses to C. Well, that makes Schwa really appealing to me. So let me see what happens if I put Schwa in at 7. So if I take Schwa, that puts me at 35. So I could still get to the 42, right?
Yeah.
I have to take a 7 or lower, and it can't be in the mixed division. Man, maybe I take Condors? I could take. I don't really want to take. I'm trying to avoid Pool D in any division because Pool D is so hard. Condors is also in a super hard pool though. but they also get a favorable crossover. I wish I could take truck. I guess I could take truck and not get the bonus, but I'm so close to the bonus,
I know.
Um, I'm
20-point bonus this year is big.
yeah, it really is. Um,
Because the way I looked at it, just to say this, I take Parcha. I think Parcha has potentially a high ceiling if they figured it out on offense. They could be Nemesis. They get a crossover game against a Pool A that I think they can win. And even if they don't, even if they go 0-3, I still get 20 points. Like, it's worth. I have to take either Tabby. I guess I take a 15 or 16 in the men's division too, but I don't like those matchups at all.
maybe I should have raised the cap by like 2 points or 2 spots.
Too late now.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not gonna change it now. Maybe that would have been a better move with upping the points to 20. So instead of 42, make it a 44 or something.
We'll have to see what the optimal lineups.
Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, that's the game. Is like we're all solving it together. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go for the 20. I'm tempted. I would like really want to just take Fury and just like lock in a team I think is gonna win the title. Because I don't have a lot of teams I feel like are gonna compete for a championship right now, and that's concerning. But the 20 points, I mean, that's a semifinalist right there. That's a semifinal win. So I think, yeah, I'm gonna go right now with somebody said take noise. Jack Kelly, who I think might be on noise, said to take noise. I'm gonna take Condors for right now, which easily clears me past the bonus.
Past the bonus.
But I'm reserving the right to not submit these as my final picks.
As you should. All right. Well, there it is. Our picks are in the books. Our game picks are in the books, and we're super excited for the national championships. It's coming up in just 3 days. A couple notes real quick about coverage. ultiworld.com/live, your home for live coverage all weekend long. We are streaming 2 games per round this year. First time ever. I'm super excited. We are also filming 2 games per round this year. And what that means is that there's going to be more coverage from this year's club championships than ever before. We're going to film 8 of the 12 quarterfinals. And my eye is on being able to film all 12 in 2022. And maybe even more streams next year. But I'm really excited for our commentary team as well. Samantha Broadus, Becky Ladane, Tyler Kinley as color analysts, all top-level players and coaches. And then it'll be Keith Raynor, Luca Serio, and who am I forgetting?
Ian Toner.
Of course.
Just a pros pro right
last
there.
but not least, Ian Toner are our 3 play-by-play commentators. So I'm super excited to have all 6 of them out there calling the action. And Keith, I'll see you in a couple days, buddy.
I can't believe it. And check out the commentary that we got the diversity in our color commentators. We got Northwest, we've got the Central, we've got the Mid-Atlantic. So we got a nice spread across the country. Maybe not as much with our color team, but with our play-by-play team. But I've lived all over the place. So Toner's moved around. We're gonna be good. I'm very excited.
In Omaha right now. So
what the heck? Really?
He's repping the Midwest now.
I didn't even know that. Charlie, yeah, we're starting. Nationals is happening. The start of the NBA season is happening, and a bunch of the people at Team Multiworld are NBA nerds. So I'm looking forward to chopping it up as we watch the beginning of the year, and while we do our writing, we'll watch the beginning of the NBA season. I appreciate everybody who's been in the chat, hanging out with us. If you haven't hit the like button, hit that thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, we also appreciate that. And we're in the middle of our subscription drive. So any support of our organization right now goes a really long way. We really could not do the biggest presentation at Nationals that anybody's done without the support of our subscribers. Charlie has been working his butt off to try and get all these streams together. And now there's going to be more of Nationals filmed than if you take the last 3 or 5 seasons since Ultiworld started. If you go to the pre-Ultiworld area, or pre-Ultiworld era, there might be more Nationals filmed from this year than all of the rest of pre-Ultiworld era Nationals. We are bringing the whole tournament to you. So I'm very, very excited about it. And the results, dear, we just don't know. Charlie and I have a lot of picks, but man, it could really go a lot of different ways.
well, it's all going to play out starting in 3 days in San Diego. We will see you there. Stay tuned for our coverage all weekend long. Again, ultiworld.com/live. Streams kick off 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. So you're going to get that second screen up. Just we got to get the boss button. We're working on that one. All right. For Keith Raynor, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. Thanks for tuning in for this live edition of Deep Look. We'll talk to you on Thursday.